On your radio at AM 1590, on the web, plus Google Home and Alexa. Ask for us by name, WPSL Digital 1590.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook because it's time for the African American Scene, presented by Howard Insurance every week at this time, and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Wow. What shocking results last night in the primary. Biden just whooped some butt. But I wonder if any of this has affected some of your thinking about who you're going to vote for. I think another major thing happened this week, and it wasn't a liberal. It was a conservative judge who ruled that they must turn over the Mueller report and clear it of some of those redacted items. That should be very interesting, very interesting. And I would suspect that Mr. Trump will be on the warpath going after Mr. Biden. But I suggest he be very careful because he got enough trash in his own backyard that could be thrown back at him. So we'll see. But I welcome your thoughts on what you saw last night on the primary results. I will say this to you, which I was kind of surprised at, but seems to give me an indication of things to come. There was record turnout in 3 states, which tells me record Democratic turnout in 3 states, and Florida just recorded this largest number of Democratic registered voters in the history of the state. So it would appear the Democrats are on the warpath, and they are going strong after President Trump. But in any event, don't forget now, we're continuing with our trivia thanks to my friend, Mr. Ainsley, Brian Ainsley, who has given me these books. These books are fantastic. I read a couple of the titles from you last week. And the winner last week actually didn't come and pick up the book yet. But it's here. And here is tonight's trivia question. Who was the first black actress to be nominated? I want you to listen very carefully. Who was the first black actress to be nominated for Best Actress for an Academy Award? If you know that, the number is 340-1590. 340-1590. The first black woman actress nominated for Best Actress for an Academy Award. Okay. Now, I will tell you this, and then I'm going to get into the information that I prepared for you tonight. For all of you who blindly defend our president, his constant lies, and I hate to say that word regarding the president. It's insulting even for me to say it, but I don't know how to come up with any others. You know, some of them bend the truth, twist the saying, but these just blatant lies that he tells all the time are coming back to hurt us in the midst of this coronavirus crisis. And then for some of you, I saw an interview recently where they were talking to some people who were MAGA hat wearers, and they are convinced the coronavirus is a plot by the Democratic Party to bring down President Trump. My God, I hope that some of you out there are smart enough not to believe that. You wouldn't have the whole country of Italy on lockdown if it was a conspiracy contrived virus to bring down President Trump. Come on, that just doesn't make any sense. And that's the kind of stuff, when I lose my temper here on Wednesday night, that makes me mad. Because if you think about it, just a little bit of logical thought, it would not make any sense. I have something here that I want you to hear. And this was a lady testifying before Congress about poverty, and it was so powerful that I really wanted all of you to hear it. So Cliff's going to play that for you right now.
Ms. Hutchinson.
Good morning. My name is Amy Jo Hutchison. I'm a single mom of two who's lived in West Virginia all my life. I'm also a community organizer for West Virginia Healthy Kids and Families, Our Future West Virginia, where I organize and advocate for poor and marginalized folks. Today I'm here to help you better understand poverty, because poverty is my lived experience. And I'm also here to acknowledge the biased beliefs that poor people are lazy and that poverty is their fault. But how do I make you understand things like working full-time for $10 an hour is only about $19,000 a year, even though it's well above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour? I want to tell you about a single mom I met who was working at a gas station. She was promoted to manager, and within 30 days, she had to report her new income to DHHR. Within 60 days, her rent bumped from $475 to $950 a month. She lost her SNAP benefits and her family's health insurance. So she did what poor people are forced to do all the time. She resigned her promotion and went back to working part-time just so she and her family could survive. Another single mom I know encouraged her kids to get jobs. For her DHR review, she had to claim their income as well. She lost her SNAP benefits and her insurance, so she weaned herself off of her blood pressure medicines because she, working full-time in a bank and part-time at a shop on the weekends, couldn't afford to buy them. Eventually, the girls quit their jobs because their part-time fast food income was literally killing their mother. You see, the thing is, children aren't going to escape poverty as long as they're relying on a head household, who was poor. Poverty rolls off the backs of parents and right onto the shoulders of our children, despite how hard we try. I can tell you about my own with food insecurity. The nights I went to bed hungry so my kids could have seconds, and I was employed full-time as a Head Start teacher. I can tell you about being above the poverty guideline, nursing my gallbladder with essential oils and prayer, chewing on cloves and eating ibuprofen like they're Tic Tacs because I don't have health insurance and I can't afford a dentist. I have 2 jobs and a bachelor's degree, and I struggle to make ends meet. The federal poverty guidelines say that I'm not poor, but I cashed in a jar full of change the other night so my daughter could attend a high school band competition with her band. I can't go grocery shopping without a calculator. I had to decide which bills not to pay to be here in this room today. Believe me, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps so many damn times that I've ripped them off. The current poverty guidelines are ridiculously out of touch. The poverty line for a family of 3 is $21,720. Where I live, because of the oil and gas boom, a 3-bedroom home rents for $1,200 a month. So if I made $22,000 a year, which could disqualify me from assistance, I would have $8,000 left to raise 2 children and myself on. And yet the poverty guidelines wouldn't classify me as poor. I Googled congressman's salary the other day, and according to Senate.gov, the salary for senators, representatives, and delegates is $174,000 a year. So a year of work for you is the equivalent of almost 4 years of work for me, and I'm $24,000 above the federal poverty guidelines definition of poor. It would take 9 people working full-time for a year at $10 an hour to match y'all's salary. I also read that each senator has authorized $40,000 for state office furniture and furnishings, and this amount has increased each year to reflect inflation. That $40,000 a year for furniture is $360 more than the federal poverty guidelines for a family of 7. And yet here I am, begging you on behalf of the 15 million children living in poverty in the United States, on behalf of the 1 in 3 kids under the age of 5, and nearly 100,000 children in my state of West Virginia living in poverty, to not change anything about these federal poverty guidelines until you can make them relevant and reflect what poverty really looks like today. You have a $40,000 furniture allotment. West Virginia has a median income of $43,000 and some change. People are working full-time and are hungry. Kids are about to be kicked off the free and reduced lunch rolls because of changes y'all want to make to SNAP. Even though 62% of West Virginia's SNAP recipients are families with children, the very same children who cannot take a part-time job because their parents will die without insurance. People are working full-time in this country for very little money. They're not poor enough to get help. They don't make enough to get by. They're working while they're rationing their insulin, and they're skipping their meds because they can't afford food and health care at the same time. So shame on you. Shame on you, and shame on me, and shame on each and every one of us who haven't rattled the windows of these buildings with cries of outrage at a government that thinks their office furniture is worthy of $40,000 a year and families and children aren't. I'm not asking you to apologize for your privilege, but I'm asking you to see past it. There are 46 million Americans living in poverty, doing the best they know how with what they have, and we, in defense of children and families, cannot accept anything less from our very own government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you.
That struck me like a lightning bolt.
Wow.
Yeah, that struck me like a lightning bolt.
I think we just turned.
I think that lady just gave us a economics lesson of what it's like to be poor in America. And you know, the irony really is the budget that they get for furniture each year that is inflation adjusted. Did you catch that, Cliff?
Well, yeah, it's more than what most people make.
Right. And it's inflation adjusted, which means every year that can get bumped up a little bit depending upon what the economy's doing for furniture.
Why can't we all claim that deduction, no matter how much or little we make?
I don't know. There's not a whole lot of people that I know that can go out and spend $40,000 on furniture.
Every year.
Every year, right?
Oh, my. What are they furnishing?
Yeah. So, but guys, I wanted you to hear that just because I want you to be educated, because I think she says something there that's really important. There's this common perception that people who are poor because they're lazy and they don't want to work hard. And that's contrary to what I know growing up. Now, are there some people that are poor and lazy? Yes. There are some people that are rich and lazy. Yes. So there are some people that make a lot of money.
You don't suppose them rich, lazy ones are what's making it so hard for everybody else, do you?
Could be that they don't want to spread the wealth that they're gaining from their position or from the achievements that they've made to the people that work for them. But in any event, I thought you would appreciate that. And if you'd like to call in and comment, the number is 340-1590. And I'm going to give you the trivia question of the night again. And for the book, Greatness Above the Noise by Andy Purvis. a series of short stories about professional athletes of all walks of life, golfers, basketball players, football players, just really interesting. And a quick little read of short stories about some of your favorite sports heroes. Who was the first black actress nominated for Best Actress for an Academy Award? Who was the first one? And if you know that answer, the number is 340-1590.
Was she a movie actress or a television actress?
Movie actress.
Movie actress. Ah, yeah, that makes a big difference there.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I've told you over the years that the reason why I do this this education on Black history is because so many of you have not received a proper education about who Black people are. Well, tonight I'm going to give you some information about the Moors. I'm going to guess there's a whole bunch of you out there that have never even heard of the Moors. The Moors are a very sophisticated group of African people. And Winnie on line one, yes, ma'am.
How you doing? You Cliff?
Yeah.
Good. I think that is that Hattie McDaniel. She played on Gone with the Wind.
No, and Hattie McDaniel did not play on Gone with, with Wiz. No, she did not. But it's not Hattie McDaniel anyway. She played in Gone with the Wind.
Her?
No.
Oh, somebody else. That person was Hattie McDaniel. She won an Oscar behind Gone with the Wind.
Yes, she did. You're right. But she wasn't.
This person.
This person didn't win, but they was the first person nominated for Best Actress.
So she did.
And Hattie McDaniel didn't win Best Actress. And here's a little tidbit of information for you. Do you know Hattie McDaniel was not allowed to attend the Oscars back then?
That's what I heard.
It's true. She could not attend, even though she was nominated and ultimately won an Oscar. She was not allowed to attend. How about that?
Oh, well, she was sitting at the table or something.
No.
She just not allowed to go.
She was not allowed to go. Everything I have read said she was prohibited from going back then. Was not allowed to go.
Oh, wow, that was bad.
Yeah.
Like back then with 1939.
Yeah.
1939. Clark Gables and Vivian Lynch, she played Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but that's an old class.
Did somebody have to? Did somebody have to accept the award on her behalf?
I would believe so, and I'm not sure who did. Wow. What I just know that from my reading that she was forbidden to attend.
I wonder if anybody back then noticed that is so unfair.
Well,
if she gets the award, you can't even go inside the place to get the award.
I think at that time, people were desensitized to that kind of thing because it was so much a part of the way things were.
Back then.
Yeah, back then, and especially, that's just the way it was. So
I heard Joe Biden, like he went a long kind of states for Joe Biden.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And he's sweeping up like Bernie Sanders. They say he not gonna drop out. They say he gonna hang in there to the end, but Bernie Sanders like he just hanging.
Yeah,
like he just hanging. But Joe Biden might take it all the way though. it don't look like just take it all away.
I think so. I think Joe Biden's on his way to victory.
Me too. That what it seems like. I ain't no vote for him no way. I'll vote for the you know who I'm talking about. Vote for the
I know you're gonna.
the Republicans.
I know you're gonna vote for your buddy. I know you. I know you're gonna vote for Mr. Trump. I don't hold that against you.
Thank you. Thank you. I tell people to vote. I don't care who you vote for. Just vote.
Yeah.
That's how it is. But we'll be talking, and
Okay.
God bless y'all.
Yeah, bless you too now.
Bye-bye.
All right. Now, some of you, I'm going to guess, probably Dominic, my buddy Dominic, if he's listening, or maybe Renee Arteaga, because he knows all this stuff. He often surprises me, knows about the Moors. The Moors were African people, and the Moors began in 711 AD. They were an African army under the leadership of Tariq Said that crossed the Strait of Gibraltar from northern Africa and invaded the Iberian Peninsula, which was Spain. And they took over the rulership of Spain for some 800 years. Now, why do I want to tell you this story? Because most of you, not all of you, have this picture of Africans running in the bush that were very unsophisticated and not very knowledgeable about the ways of the world. And here, the Moors were actively recruited by Rome, and they served in Britain, France, Switzerland, and Austria, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. Saint Maurice, patron saint of the medieval Europe, was one of the many black soldiers and officers under the employ of the Roman Empire. So these were very fierce warriors. Now, what has happened is, and this won't become as a surprise to you if you've been listening to me for any time, generations of Spanish rulers have tried to expunge this era from the historical record. Recent archaeological and scholarship now shed fresh light on the Moors, who flourished in Andalus for more than 700 years, 711 AD to 1492. The Moors' advances in mathematics, astronomy, art, and agriculture helped to propel Europe out of the Dark Ages and into the Renaissance. Bet you didn't know that. Bunch of black guys back there, all the way back there, helped to lift up Europe and propel them through their knowledge of science and mathematics, and lifted up their societies. The intellectual achievements of the Moors in Spain had a lasting effect. Education was universal in Moorish Spain, and while Christian Europe, 99% of the population was illiterate, and even kings could neither read nor write. At a time when Europe had only 2 universities, the Moors had 17. Now listen to that. I Bet you didn't know that. At the time that the Moors reigned, they had 17 universities, and Europe had 2. How about that? In the 10th and 11th centuries, public libraries in Europe were non-existent. So in 10th and 11th century, there were no public libraries in Europe. But the Moors in Spain had more than 70, listen to this, 70 libraries where they kept hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. The universities in Paris and Oxford were established after visits by scholars to Moorish Spain. How about that? They weren't running in the bush. These were highly educated and sophisticated people that had a great deal to add to society. If you want to make a comment, again, that number is 340-1590. I'm guessing my buddy Dominic probably knew something about that. Let me go on. I have a couple of little other highlights here. The Moors, who ruled Spain for 800 years, introduced new scientific techniques to Europe, such as astrolabe, a device for measuring the position of the stars and planets. Scientific progress in astronomy, chemistry, physics, mathematics, geography, and philosophy flourished in Moorish Spain. How about that? These guys were STEM people before we even knew what that word was. And we have Danny on line 1. Yes, sir.
Sir, you are so knowledgeable, and I just am enjoying your conversation.
Thank you.
And first-time caller, so listener, really. This story about the Moors is fascinating.
Yeah.
And any news about where they might have kept a lot of their manuscripts and books that were in those 70 libraries, has any of that been archived or brought somewhere where I can't imagine what they had in those libraries?
Well, there's a couple of scientists who have taken a big interest. One of them is the author and historian Chancellor Williams said the original Moors were like the original Egyptians.
Fabulous.
Yeah, he said they were just very sophisticated people. Now, if you want, I think there's some other people here that they refer to, but he's the main one, it appears. He's done an extensive research on the Moors, and the Spanish have tried to bury this story. I
wonder why. Why? I mean, you know, the young kids, the young people that we're losing today, and the generations that are out there have no clue, no idea. And when you bring this into light and you bring in the history, this is important, very important groundwork, and it can into many exciting pieces that have yet to be spoken on or even discovered, if you will.
My friend, I could not agree with you more. Last week, I talked about how when Hidden Figures came out, how embarrassed I was because I consider myself very knowledgeable, and I knew nothing about those ladies that worked at NASA.
Wow.
And my thought was, I wonder how many little black girls, when they were growing up, or white girls, who saw them as role models, might have aspired to be mathematicians because of what they saw.
Absolutely. And that's the key. Exposure, bringing into light, getting away from what was. You know, you look at Martin Luther and what a phenomenal man, what a godly man, and what a game changer he was and still is. But we only hear about it during January 20th, you know.
Yep.
You know, I'm on your side. I feel that we need to get more involved with exposure of the who's and the what's and those that have been buried for whatever political reason and or just shunned away because, again, this society we're living in, everything's fast-paced, everything's quick. You can Google everything. In fact, I Googled Dorothy Jean Dandridge.
You're right.
But at the end of the day, what a remarkable young lady she was. Beautiful as well.
She was
stunning.
gorgeous.
Stunning. Stunning.
Dorothy Dandridge was just absolutely breathtaking.
And you know, again, I unless I wasn't listening, I would not have known about Dorothy Dandridge. I did a quick Google on her, and as you were with the first beautiful, maturing woman, bless her heart, you know, I'm looking this up and I'm saying, my goodness. So here you've opened the door for me to look at this beautiful young lady in her first film of Carmen Jones in 1954. It's a little before my time. I was born in 64, but nevertheless.
But you know what, Danny? Look that if you can, you might be able to find it on your DVR or in the old archives on one of your programs. Harry Belafonte played the lead role in that movie. And
beautiful.
And you see her in there. She was just absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. You're right.
Yeah, embolism was her death, they said.
Yeah,
You know, active to 65. She died after a year after I was born. But nevertheless, these movies, these individuals, these actresses, these actors, I mean, you go back to music, soul music, you go back, I mean, there's so much African Americans played a role in, and it needs to be brought out. It needs to be more noted. And again, putting all races aside, putting all decisions that you were taught growing up by who your parents said this, said that, and as you become a young man, you begin to journey and keep Christ-centered life first. And
yes,
that's what I believe.
I do too.
And
I'm going to give you one more to look up that will just give you goosebumps.
Beautiful.
Have you ever heard of the Nicholas brothers?
The Nicholas brothers. No, I haven't. This is exciting.
Look them up on YouTube.
Okay.
They have one of the most famous tap dance scenes in the history of movies. They were absolutely super athletic. They did stuff that people today can't even possibly do. And if they had been today, they'd have won 2 or 3 Oscars from their dancing.
Oh,
so,
I mean, I love to hear this. I mean, and I tell you, I bet they had the biggest smiles on their face too.
Oh, they did, yeah.
and the rhythm.
Yeah.
The rhythm.
Yeah.
Kind of talent that many can't master.
Well,
and,
yeah, just look it up. I think you will really enjoy it.
Yeah, well, listen, I just want to thank you. Continue to march on. Continue to do what you do. And let 2020 be a breakout year for you and go places you haven't gone because you just haven't. And don't be ashamed. You're not. But go there. You have a voice and you have a position.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you very much. Danny, hold on so Cliff can get some information, and we will have the book at the front desk so you can come by and pick it up. And thanks again.
Well, my point was just to talk to you. You're phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care now.
All right, blessings.
Wow, that was good. Let's see. Now, I just told you about the advancements in astronomy, chemistry, physics, and mathematics, geography, and philosophy. At its height, Cordova, the heart of the Moorish territory in Spain, was the most modern city in Europe. Listen to this. It was the most modern city in Europe. The streets were paved with raised sidewalks for pedestrians. During the night, 10 miles of the streets were well illuminated with lamps, and this was hundreds of years before there was a paved street in Paris or a street lamp in London. How about that? They had paved streets and raised sidewalks for people to walk on and lighted streets by these guys. The
Lighted
Moors.
streets?
Yes, they did.
Wow.
They said right here, the streets were well paved with raised sidewalks for pedestrians, and during the night, 10 miles of streets were well illuminated by lamps.
Wow.
How about that? And
I knew that Rome had great aquifers that would bring water in from the mountains, you know, but this is fascinating stuff. History that you'll notice people out there trying to change it, or they're trying to erase it. They don't want you to know some of the things that have taken place, some of the great things that's been accomplished.
well, and listen, that's part of what Danny was saying. The Spanish have been trying to bury this phenomenal history of the Moors as if they were ashamed of it, and they shouldn't be ashamed of it. They should be proud of it. That the Moors had played such a pivotal role in the development of Europe, which will make some of the white nationalists pretty irritated, but the Moors played an enormous role in helping the development of Europe. Education was universal in Moorish Spain. It was available to all. Listen to this. Education was available to all, while in Christian Europe, 99% of the population were illiterate, and even kings could neither read nor write.
Wow.
How about that?
They had to call in the royal reader
Yeah.
to read something.
And you know, I had already read from that other piece that Paris and London developed their universities after visiting with the Moors. Now, there's going to be some people who are listening right now, and they got their Google going, and they're out there trying to find out if what I'm saying is true. But if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know I don't say stuff that's not true. Just not my style. I don't do it. The Moors, here's another biggie. Listen to this. The Moors introduced paper to Europe and Arabic numerals, which replaced the clumsy Roman system.
Ooh.
And you know, many of us, when we were growing up, you and I are close in age, that you had to learn your Roman numerals, right?
Yeah, because some of the clocks had Roman numerals on them.
Yes.
And we had to know what they were, yeah.
Yes, we did. They made us learn the Roman numerals.
We also had to learn how to write cursive style letters.
Yes, yes.
Penmanship, yeah.
Here's another really interesting fact about the Moors. The Moors introduced many new crops, including the orange, lemons, peach, apricot, fig, sugarcane, dates, ginger, and pomegranates, as well as saffron, sugar, and sugarcane.
I wonder how they kept it all fresh on the ships while they were shipping it around the world from one region to another.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
refrigerators yet. Wow.
And they also silk and rice. And those things remain some of Spanish's main products today. So they introduced those products to Spain. And as you know, but from the description of what I told you they introduced, lot of those products have now become a mainstay even in our own country. Now, here's another thing that you'll find very interesting. The Moorish rulers back in the 10th and 11th century lived in sumptuous palace, while the monarchs of Germany, France, and England dwelt in big barns with no windows and no chimneys, and with only a hole in the roof for the exit of smoke. So all the way back in this 10th and 11th century, we have the Moors who were building these fancy palaces. Now, just imagine, now you can't be a dummy and build that kind of structure.
You gotta have some architectural knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And finally, the Moors ruled and occupied Lisbon and the rest of the country until well into the 12th century. They were finally defeated and driven out by the forces of King Alfonso Henriques. The scene of this battle was Castelo de San Jorge, or the Castle of St. George. So, for some of you, and I know some of you are out there right now, the Google is going, because you want to see, did Rudy finally do it? Did he finally give us something that was garbage that I can jump on him about? Good luck. Try to do that, because I did my homework. The Moors are real.
What a lot of folks don't realize is you always do your homework, and I get a big kick out of you'll usually come in here and lay out a number of topics of the days, and all you would do is just give an example of what each topic was, and folks were ready to just jump all over you because I don't know what they thought.
I don't know, but they don't do it as much anymore because they've already found out that I'm usually more than prepared to answer questions.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the other thing, too. When I don't know, I say, I don't know, and I will find out.
Wow.
That's, But in any event, nobody's called to ask about the election last night. That was quite an event. I think Bernie gave a press briefing today in which he made it clear that he's going to continue on and that he's looking forward to having the debate with Joe on Sunday. But I'll tell you, if you're a Republican, you better pull the belt tight, because with all this increase in Democratic registration and the increase in people going to the polls, it looks to me like there could very well be a tidal wave come November, unless this slows down, because it appears as though people are fired up and they want to vote. And I'm going to say a couple other things about this coronavirus thing, which really I find quite disturbing. I find it very, very disturbing that we're trying to corral the information and parcel it out as political gems instead of fact information for people to digest. And I don't care how loyal a Republican you are, that has got to disturb you. It's got to disturb you. You have to be transparent with an event like this that's taken place. The scientists should be allowed to speak freely and advise us and tell us what's going on. And what we have now is today I saw they have classified, now listen to this, they're classifying some of the reporting that comes from the scientists. They're classifying it. Why? Can somebody enlighten me and tell me why you're classifying information?
If you can censor the doctors and physicians, then you can control what the public is being told.
Yes.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're, yeah.
Yes.
So sad.
Yes, it is. And you know, the DOJ Barr was lambasted by a judge earlier this week for being less than forthright with the information that's been coming out of his department. And before you make a phone call, I want you to understand this. The judge was a Republican appointee. He was not an Obama guy. And he was not a never-Trumper. He was a Republican appointee by Reagan and then again by George Bush. So what he said when he was getting on Barr about his behavior and how he's reporting information was not coming from a partisan. That should bother all of us. That should bother all of us because the Department of Justice is the people's lawyer. He's become Trump's lawyer, but the Attorney General is the lawyer of the people. And I'm so sad for how this information is parceled out. And then, if you notice, I said at the beginning, a big thing is about to happen because they said that they have to release that Mueller report. At least the judge is going to look at the unredacted portion to see whether or not all those redactions were in order. They feel there's some unnecessary redactions in that report. Now, here's the beauty of our country. This was forced by the Freedom of Information. This wasn't a partisan witch hunt. The reporters from the newspaper petitioned the government under the Freedom of Information Act to get access to the report, which is legal. That oftentimes happens when sometime you can't get the information and the newspaper people file this Freedom of Information request and the government has to respond to it. So that should be very interesting. And given the fact that that's going to come out sometime, I'm guessing in the next, I'm sure they're going to appeal the decision, but it's going to come out sometime in the next few months, I would say. And finally, we know today Harvey Weinstein was sentenced to 23 years in prison, which ultimately is a death sentence because by the time he gets out, 23 years, I think he's a couple years older than me, so he'll be almost 90 or in his high 80s when he can get a.
But one thing is certain, he'll never sexually assault another woman.
Nope.
Won't happen.
Nope. And one of my Facebook friends, who, by the way, happens to be a conservative person, said she thinks he should have got life imprisonment for what he did. And listen, I know how you feel, Cliff, and I know how I feel. That's just
I raised daughters.
That's out of bounds, man. That is just out of bounds. You don't have to. You can't force yourself on nobody. You can't make them love you. That's one of the things I told I said, you can't make a woman love you. Either she loves you or she don't love you. That's it. And if she don't love you, take your little hurt feelings, go massage them somewhere, and deal with it.
And if she tolerates you, be thankful.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right.
You don't know what you're missing until you're missing it.
That's exactly right. But anyway, so we've had plenty of stuff, and nobody called up about.
Not one person disagreeing with you on tonight's show.
That's amazing.
Maybe you're starting to get through to some of these folks. You know,
yeah.
A lot of folks might hate to admit it. We could name those though, but you know, you got a call tonight from a gentleman who was very, very enlightened by the show and thrilled with what he heard.
Yeah. And you know what? That gives me so much juice to keep going, because that's why I do this, to try to inform people, enlighten them, and help them with their thoughts going forward. And folks, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to the African American scene. God bless, be safe, and I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American scene.
The African American scene, a special feature of WPSL Radio, but also WPSL TV. Look for Rudy Howard's African American Scene channel on WPSL TV in YouTube. Go to YouTube, look for WPSL TV, and seek out all of the Rudy Howard archives. And while you're at it, just remember this. We are WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com on the World Wide Web, on TuneIn, Google Home, and Alexa.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance & Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance & Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance & Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance & Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance & Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878.